but there's one topping in the UK that Americans do not put on pizza, and let's talk about pizza. It's Italian, not British or American, but this channel is all about the UK and the USA, and if there's one thing we have in common, it's that both cultures love pizza. But the types of pizza that we eat, what we put on it, and how we eat it, that's a little bit different in some areas and a bit different in others. Hi and welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel, where we could be doing anything from taste testing mushy peas to discovering postcodes to talking about pizza. Funnily enough, while pizza is European and Italy is much closer to the UK than to the USA, the rise of pizza sort of starts around a similar documented time in the early 1900s in both countries. In the UK, there was a restaurant in Bloomsbury in London serving up a recipe for margherita pizza as early as 1934, though there were Italian restaurants in the UK much further back around the early 1800s, but it is not definitively known if they served pizza. Pizza arrived in the US in the early 1900s as well, with waves of Italian immigrants who settled in the Northeast, but it boomed in popularity after American soldiers returned after World War II. Similarly, in the UK, after World War II, pizza becomes much more widespread as more Italian immigrants settled in Britain. So what are the differences then? First, typically, generally, don't comment below and tell me that's not always the case because I know, but outside of the takeaway pizza chains like Pizza Hut and Domino's, pizza in the UK tends to be of the more Italian Neapolitan style pizza that has a thinner base. Think the kind of pizza you'd get at Pizza Express. Again, yes, you can get a thick crust or thin crust in different varieties of pizza in the UK, but on the whole, you're looking at something like this as the default. Pizza in the US has developed a lot more regional differences within the USA, so we've got New York style pizza, which is that more Neapolitan style pizza, hand stretched, relatively thin. This is most popular in the northeastern states, but then we get a little bit crazy with Chicago style pizza, which honestly is more of a casserole with some pizza ingredients inside. It's some of the thickest and deepest dish pizza you'll ever see. We also have Detroit style pizza, which is a rectangular pan pizza, originally baked in steel trays that were designed for use as automotive drip pans, so that's nice. On the whole, if you ask an American what they would think of is pizza, it's probably going to be a thicker crust than what a Brit would think of. Something more similar to this than to this. The best regional variation I can think of in the UK, which is my absolute favorite, is the pizza crunch in Scotland, where often you can get a deep fried pizza as an option from a fish and chip shop. If you haven't had it, please go try it. Your arteries will not love it, but you probably will. Secondly, it's much more common to eat pizza in the UK with a knife and a fork, like civilized, proper people do, apparently. In the US, technically people do that, maybe occasionally, rarely, but most of us are just picking any and all pizzas up with our hands, maybe folding them in half if we need to keep everything together, and shoving it into our face. There are entire threads in American Facebook groups online for Americans who live in the UK wondering why in the world everyone is using utensils to eat pizza and if they should do the same. Funnily enough, I had also never seen someone eat a hamburger with a knife and a fork until I moved to the UK. Most Americans would be horrified at such a display of manners. Next up, let's talk about toppings on pizza. They are relatively similar in many ways. Everyone knows pepperoni, cheese, sausage, maybe peppers, mushrooms, etc. But there's one topping in the UK that Americans do not put on pizza, and that's sweet corn. Or it would just be corn to an American. We don't say sweet corn. You'll find plenty of reactions online, mostly outrage and confusion from Americans who have never heard of such a thing, but plenty of British people enjoy it, though I can say it's something I've picked up since moving here, but then you all know my taste in food is more similar to a 5-year-old, so clearly I just go for plain cheese. And that's another thing, language surrounding pizza in the UK and the USA. Did you know that you were going to learn this today? No, you did not, but here you are. There are two main differences I can think of. One does have to do with me calling something a plain cheese pizza. In the US, Typically, unless you are a pizza guru, Americans call this a cheese pizza or plain cheese pizza. However, in the UK, you'll find people calling this a margarita pizza, as evidenced by Pizza Hut UK's usage of the word margarita in this ad. They mean a pizza with just cheese on top and no other toppings. They don't mean what is actually a margarita pizza, which is this: a pizza with fresh mozzarella, basil, olive oil, and sliced tomatoes or tomatoes. Brits also call this by its correct name, a margarita pizza, but margarita pizza as a term in the UK has kind of become synonymous with the plain version of a pizza with just cheese and no other toppings. It's rare that I would hear someone in the UK call it a cheese pizza. In the US, you'll find many people who don't actually know what you mean when you're referring to a margarita pizza, with one comment in the Ask an American section of Reddit stating, "I didn't learn the term margarita until I went to Europe and tried to get pizza for dinner." When you say margarita in the US, we instantly think of this, the mixed drink margarita. There are some exceptions, notably people in the US in places with significant population of Italian ancestry, like New York and New Jersey. They might use this term, but many won't. The other language difference has to do with the use of the word pie. I have never heard anyone in the UK refer to a pizza as a pie or a pizza pie. In the US, sometimes people do, and the origins go back to the Italians introducing the pizza to the Americans and trying to describe it. It's sort of just slang. Technically, to an American, it kind of is a flat, savory pie, or close enough to a pie that if you had an idea of what pie was, you could then figure out what pizza was. This term isn't used across all of America, but it's definitely a regional thing, and you may hear it in movies and on American shows depending on where it's set. Another pizza difference is that pizza by the slice is hugely popular in the USA. We tend to make our pizzas a lot bigger, which I'll get into in a second, and selling pizza by the slice is very common, both in things like food courts and from street vendors like in New York City, and sometimes when out at restaurants, you can just order a slice of pizza. Pizza by the slice is not as common in the UK. Yes, you can get it at Costco, but that's an American company. Typically, the pizza style in the UK is a little bit smaller, and at chains like Pizza Express, you're typically going to order just one full pizza per person because they're not as big as what an American would consider a pizza to be. And that brings me to the size of pizzas, because as we all know, everything is bigger in America, including our pizzas. American small, medium, and large pizzas are all larger than their British counterparts. The largest pizza Domino's offers in the US is almost 30% larger than the UK Domino's largest pizza size. Now that brings me to the end of this video. Let me know your favorite way to eat pizza below and which country you're from, and I'll see you guys next time.